5 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5 p.m. on March the 9th, 2021, for the beginning of our Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee meeting. I am the chair, Linda Kochmar, and we have joining us our council members, Greg Baruso and council member Lydia Acefa Dawson on the committee. And sitting in is our council president, Susan Honda. The first item on our agenda, calling the meeting to order, the first item is public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Thank you, Mary. So going on to committee business. The first item on the agenda for committee business is approval of the February 12th, 2021 minutes.
I move to approve the minutes for February 2021 as written.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Acefa Dawson, seconded by Councilmember Baruso to approve the February 12th, 2021 minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. So now we're moving on to item B on the committee business agenda for South King Fire update by Chief Pennington.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, there's been a couple of them where I pushed the unmute button and nobody still hears me, so, you know. Well, first off, thank you very much for inviting us, and Council Member Baruso, thank you for reaching out and the invitation. This is, I think, new for us at South King to be a part of the Public Safety Committee for the city. I think it's important that we have that relationship, and you know, we're an integral part of your public safety. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about last year, and then I've also got Assistant Chief Gordon Goodsell, who's our fire marshal, that will talk a little bit about the fire marshal, what happened in 2020 relative to the fire marshal's office and building and inspections and things like that. So so, you know, as we know, it's been quite a year, right? You know, we started out a year with a worldwide pandemic. We have high mortality rates. You know, it's just been a year that has been, you know, really driven by a lot of external sources, external influences that has really kind of dictated how we do business to a certain degree. And so, you know, what we had to do at South King is, you know, I mean, this affected unilaterally all of our divisions in the organization. And so what we did is we met, I called everybody when things really started to look like they were going to kind of take off. We got together at the end of February. We created a COVID-19 task force, and this was in collaboration with our labor groups and our different divisions. We had to move people out of the fire marshal's office onto 24-hour shifts. We brought people in from shift work that had specialties in the areas of research and the areas of working with FEMA based on some of the work that they do with the urban search and rescue teams. One of our hazmat folks who his background is in biohazards and bugs and all sorts of things like that. We brought him in, and we created this task force. I had Assistant Chief Tafton, our Chief of Special Ops, as the incident commander, Chief Goodsell as our health and safety officer. And so they created this task force, and we moved forward, and we worked in collaboration with the state and the county and our local cities and all of the groups that are important to our communities. And so it's still quite an effort, but we had to kind of learn as we went. And I've been in this fire business for about 46 years now, and I have to tell you that the collaboration, the cooperation, the breaking down of regional siloing of agencies, man, that I tell you, I haven't seen. These agencies work, well together, but man, they were just stellar. They weren't perfect. None of it was perfect, but it really was at a level that I have not seen in my career, and so I was really proud of that. So what we did in our emergency operations is we really looked at our daily responses, and we had to change how we did business. We had to change our dispatch protocols, and remember, all of this is done through a regional collaboration. Everybody, City of Seattle, the South King County fire agencies, the East Side fire agencies, we all work together to come up with consistent policies, consistent responses. And out of that, we only had, we didn't have any on-duty COVID people that got COVID and were sick. We have had some folks that have had COVID, and Chief Goodsell will speak to that, but that was all off-duty, and that was later on in how that had all gone. The other thing that went on is we had unprecedented wildfires this year. And so it's been a number of years since we've had to send people out of state, but we sent people to Oregon and California, and so it was a tremendous amount of things that went on in 2020 that we all had to support, and then we had to do our regular everyday business too. So there was there was a lot of change in terms of emergency operations. And they got a new fire chief too at the fire department, so there was some change in leadership and some expectations there. So I really want to commend my staff and all of our folks, out in the field, and our business operations people, at fire marshals, everybody, because this year handed us a whole lot of change. I don't think there was anything that hadn't changed, and we're all in that. But so anyway, so we worked. We'll talk a little bit about emergency management. And as I said, in February, I established a COVID task force, and we created that, and we also had folks that went to the King County Emergency Operations Center and worked with King County, worked with public health. And that was a big learning experience in itself, and very beneficial to our communities in terms of resources and having direct access to resources and being a part of the supply chain. As a matter of fact, our warehouse out of 356th and Pacific Highway is one of the centers that we not only keep our supplies, but it's also a strategic center for King County and the rest of our agencies that rely on those types of the PPEs and things. So we've really become an integral part of this whole thing. We had the opportunity to work with our local police departments in training and supplies, and we set up a decon facility through our hazmat team so that we could decon police cars and that, so that they could get a quick turnaround and move back out into the street, and also decon themselves as well. We also were able to have some public-private partnerships, and this was pretty unique. We were at a point where there weren't any personal protective equipment, no gowns, and gowns are an extremely important part of what we do, and in terms of going in to seeing patients. And one of the members of the task force said, "Hey, what do we make gowns out of?" Well, we make it out of Tyvek. And they said, "Well, what do we wrap houses in?" Well, we wrap houses when new construction in Tyvek. And so they went up to Lowe's, the local Lowe's here in Federal Way, and they were getting a roll of house wrap made by DuPont. And so the manager up there said, "Hey, what are you guys doing with it?" And they explained to him that we wanted to make some gowns, and so he gave us that, and then we worked with not only Lowe's but DuPont directly, and the CDC. The CDC had told us that if you need gowns, you need to figure out what you need to make them out of, whatever you need, and open that door. So that's where this Tyvek piece came in. And we put together a pattern, we put together a video, and DuPont actually shipped to any agency that wanted that type of Tyvek. They would ship it out there. And we had, I think the farthest, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but I think the farthest that I recall getting a phone call from was Scotland that said, hey, tell us how you make these gowns. And so we sent them all the open source information they needed. So that's the kind of stuff that went on from just our agency. And we also, the Purdy Correctional Facility, they have a sewing group over there, and they started manufacturing these gowns for a number of different fire agencies as gowns that we would need to use. So we had a lot of good work within our own emergency operation partners here locally, as well as on a regional basis as well. And like I say, the COVID really impacted a lot of the different decisions, as I'm sure the cities have done. Their finance divisions created funding pieces for COVID. We spent about $345,000 and we got reimbursed for 75% of that from FEMA. So we did some real due diligence in terms of our work related to tracking those costs, and we continue to have those costs. But as we know, we've made some headway, and in fact, as I got my shot today, so we've made some real headway in the things that we've done. So that's and Chief Goodsell will talk a little bit more about COVID and kind of what's going on in the fire marshal's office. But for us, what we had also, like I said, our regular business continues, and so we were very thankful that we were able to pass an M&O levy, which allowed us to buy 4 fire engines that we'll get here in the latter part of 2021. We were able to do some work with our legislative advocate in Olympia, and thank you to the 30th and the 33rd legislative contingency. They carried the water for us, and we were able to get, for the first time ever, through the Department of Commerce out of the budget, $750,000 towards a new fire boat, and that will impact us greatly in terms of our ability to deliver service and fire protection along the beaches and the beach houses. The current boat that we have has a pump that pumps at about 300 gallons a minute, and it's difficult to get water onto the shore, and it has a internal pumping system that will put water about 100 feet. So it makes it a little bit difficult to effectively put out some fires without having to take hose all the way down the side of the hills and down onto the beaches. And what this boat will do is it has a pumping system that will pump 3,000 gallons a minute, and that's a fire engine pumps 1,500. So it's double what a fire engine would do, because it has 2 fire pumps on board. It will pump water, throw water out of the nozzles at about 400 feet. So that allows us to get pretty close and to do some pretty effective water supply to our beach areas. So we're really pleased that we were able to do that, and that we have the support of our legislative contingent to make that happen. Calls for service in 2020 went down by 494 calls, and so we attribute that to that people weren't out and about. We had a lot less motor vehicle accidents, a lot less people out and about. So we were down by about 494 calls. We had in 2018 we had 20,185 calls per service, and a variety of house fires, aid calls, the whole gamut of what we did. So anyway, but we were going on a lot higher risk calls in terms of medical type calls, so a greater risk to our folks. So we in 2021 we're continuing to move forward we've initiated just in this year, actually yesterday, we have a new website that we're very proud of, and it's a website that is much easier to use. It's much more transparent. It provides you information if you're a business, and you can go into the fire marshal, fire prevention area. If you want public records, it has an area there. It has different, if you're interested in classes or interested in programs, it has a link there. So it's a lot easier to use. The information is much more available on this particular website. So we launched that yesterday, and today we launched another website. It's called Washington Careers, and this is in conjunction with our partners in our training consortium partners, which are the folks that are in our South. It's about 12 different agencies, and one of the things that we looked at is what kind of barriers are there for folks to get into the fire service and fire service jobs. And one of the things that we identified is that the cost to take a test, if you want to take a test for the fire service, you go through public safety testing, and it's somewhere between $250 and $300 for a test. And then if any additional agencies you want to add on, there's another cost. So this will cost them $25 is what it costs to take a test. We manage our own tests. We have our own tests. We have a company that a lot of other agencies use. That LA City and I think LA County uses, and other fire agencies, other public safety agencies, and so the HR managers from these varying agencies got together and managed this as a directive from our group of chiefs, and so it's $25 to take the test, and so it takes down another barrier, and so we're moving forward as an agency in terms of reaching out and recruiting and casting that net wider to look at all qualified people that can come and want to have these careers. So we're taking down some of those barriers in terms of recruiting, and in terms of getting that information out, and then we'll be doing some work internally. We are launching, it's called the First Rung Initiative, and we will have we've engaged a consultant to help us with our DEIs, our reviews, our learning processes, because we also realize that recruiting is only one piece of the hiring process. It's the retention that's important. And so we're going to take a look internally, and we're going to learn and understand and look at the culture. And so the First Rung Initiative, we're starting with 30 ambassadors from within the organization. And so we'll use that group to do a lot of work, and then we will move that out to the greater organization. So those are some things that we're doing both internally and externally. In 2021, our current strategic leadership plan will come to an end, and what we're going to do is we're going to update that. We've got, there's different leadership.
Vic,
yes.
we're kind of we have a lot on our agenda. So
okay.
I'm wondering if you could just kind of bring it to a close. And I know we still have to hear from Chief Goodsell yet.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up real quick here.
Thank you.
What probably the big takeaway from this is we're continuing to do the things we need to do. We're going to go through the accreditation process, which will involve, probably some outreach to our community and there. So we've got a lot to do. I will say that I'm very thankful that we have this opportunity, and I will segue over to Chief Goodsell and get him on there, and I'd be glad to follow up with any one of you.
Thank you. You're doing a good job, Vic. Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Gordy.
Hi there. Great. It's great seeing you all, and I know most of you pretty well. I do serve as your fire marshal, and I'm also the South King Fire and Rescue Safety Officer. So part of that responsibility, in addition to my fire marshal job of leading prevention, I ensure that our firefighters have the PPE and policies and a culture that supports a safe working environment. On the prevention side of things, I just briefly want to go over how we've adjusted our program delivery due to COVID. So in prevention, we talk about the 3 E's, and those are education, engineering, and enforcement. And on the education front, we partnered with the school districts to produce firefighter-led instructional videos for remote learning. These included instruction in exercise. These were all led by firefighters. Exercise, nutrition, virtual station tours. We had firefighters reading books. One of our virtual tours was led by one of our firefighters who speaks Spanish fluently. This was a great opportunity to help teach Spanish remotely to a Spanish class and also to promote a diverse workforce. Other virtual community events that we did were birthday drive-bys in the fire engine, and also we did evening events driving Santa through many of our neighborhoods. So those were ways that we improvised a bit to continue to connect with our community and provide education that would be helpful to them. On the engineering front, the pandemic gave us a nudge that was needed to shift to electronic plan review. Our fire plans examiner has been able to work from home and keep up on the work while ensuring our buildings and fire systems are designed to meet the code. And he works closely with your building department, and they've just done a great job making adjustments that were needed. Now, in terms of code enforcement, the biggest adjustment we made is we did have to suspend our routine building inspection program. We do have an annual inspection program of all the businesses in Federal Way. Those are currently done by our engine companies, but that has been suspended during COVID. So I'm projecting that when we get to the state phase 4, that we'll be able to start up those inspections again. But while those are down, we're using this time to prepare for a transition to the way that we're actually delivering that service, and also looking at a software platform that will increase our efficiencies. Also, our deputy fire marshals that work full-time with prevention, they continue to do field inspection of new construction. They're also utilizing virtual inspections when appropriate. So I'm now transitioning just briefly to our emergency response. Of course, we had to make big adjustments to the way that we were responding. We had protocols in place that we really only used in training and for that odd call, but we're using that on every call now. We were very fortunate and blessed to have a large stockpile of N95s. Many of you know former Chief Ed Plumley. He was involved about 5 years ago in purchasing a huge stockpile really of N95 masks that really gave us level of security when we were in the early months of this pandemic, so that we could respond with some level of confidence. So that helped us also to protect not only our personnel but the patients we see in the field. So to date, since the COVID pandemic, we've seen over 450 patients who are confirmed COVID positive. And we know that that's just a fraction of the actual number because, of course, many of them go untested. So I count that as a real success that, our PPE and our policies were in place to protect our personnel. And as Chief mentioned, we don't know of any responders who were exposed and infected in the field on a response. So I see that as just a huge testament to the diligence that they applied to the response and the care that they were taking. And in the fire station too, we didn't have any members that we know of that actually got sick from an exposure at work in the fire station. So that's a real success. We continue to wear face coverings in the station. Because most of our personnel, excluding some of our support staff, are 1A, and a large majority of them have been vaccinated. So that certainly gives them a level of comfort. So, Chief, that's my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Council, are there any questions?
I have a
I
question.
just have, Go ahead.
Go ahead, Susan.
No, I just want to make. I just wanted to make a comment. So go ahead. Go ahead, Council President. If you want to talk first, go ahead.
I just wanted, Gordy, if it's okay if I call you that.
Sure.
We're in Kiwanis together, so. You mentioned phase 4, and I didn't realize that we knew anything besides phase 2. I didn't realize that phases 3 and 4 existed yet.
Well, I think they exist on paper. And
Okay.
so I'm projecting that that might be an appropriate time to do annual, like, routine inspections. And that's kind of my best guess at this point, that, you know, until we get to that phase, it's probably not a safety enhancement to go out and mingle. So, but when the time is right, then we'll get out and start up again.
Okay, thank you.
I thought
Well,
you
it
knew
looks like-
something that we didn't know, so.
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm an optimistic person, so.
Okay, so we
Thank you.
have Councilmember Baruso and then Councilmember Sebadawson. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, Chair Richmond. I just want to, first of all, thank both Chiefs Goodsell and Pennington for taking the time out to spend time with us to kind of tell us how how's going, how your year's going, and it's great to know that that you folks are there working with us too and working with our PE department. And so I just thank you, and thank you, Chair Kochmar, for letting me indulge and again and have Chief Pennington and Goodsell here today. Thank you.
Thank you for
Councilmember
your support.
Sebadawson.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I too wanted to say thank you in particular for the $25 test for removing that barrier, because I think that's very important. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for this presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to doing this. Maybe if we do it on a quarterly basis, and we can follow up with if there's some particular areas that you're interested in that you'd like to have a consistent report on, we'd be glad to do that. So this is really cool. It's a great step forward in our engagement in with the council and in particular at the committee level. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Baruso. It was a good idea. And Chief Pennington, you're doing a great job picking up right on from Chief Church and moving right on forward. Thank you very much. And Gordy, thank you so much. Gordy, a few years back, we had a volunteer in the community who I had spoken with in the morning and had driven by her house by accident. Not by accident, but just happened to drive by later in the morning when her house was on fire. And she was disabled and unable to get out. And I remember how kind Gordy was. It was so traumatic to stand there and know you couldn't do anything. But thank you very much, Gordy, for all the firefighters, for all the work that you've all been doing, trying to keep our community safe. Thank you.
Well, your support is so important to us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, onward and upward for Kiwanis, for Gordy, for one. Okay, thank you, Chief Pennington.
You're welcome.
You're welcome to stay through the meeting if you like. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to Commander Neal, who's going to be talking to us about item number 3, which is the police investigations purchase of a vehicle.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Deputy Chief Neal with the Police Department, and the policy question here is we are asking for authorization to purchase a replacement SIU vehicle. It's a pickup truck that we utilize for various things in our operations regarding our special investigations. One of the main things that we use it for is the dismantling of these large marijuana grow operations and that sort of thing. A little bit of history here is we've had a truck. We've always had a pickup to do this, but it was damaged to the point where it could not be repaired some time ago, and that's why we need to replace it. This is a vehicle that is purchased with drug seizure funds, so it's not part of the fleet, the main fleet. This is an SIU fleet. We have 9 vehicles that our SIU detectives utilize for various things. And so the purchase of it comes from, as I say, drug seizure money. And the only thing that the city has to pay for is just the licensing and insurance. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions? So I see, excuse me, I think Councilmember Sefa Dawson, is your hand up just from the last time? Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right. So
Got
that's okay. We'll have to add to Mayor Farrell's. Okay, Deputy President Honda.
That's a new title. Deputy
Oh.
President.
Sorry.
No problem. So,
Council President. I never have gotten that straight.
yeah, I have a question on the extras that are included in the option.
Okay.
Do those come with the vehicle that you've picked out, or are you adding those to the vehicle?
Some of those were added on for specific reasons for the use of the truck. So this vehicle came off of the state bid, which is where we buy most of our vehicles at a discount. And so our SIU division came up with the options that they felt were necessary for this particular vehicle.
So the spray-in bed liner is that to protect the vehicle?
It's pretty important for the types of stuff that we put in the back of this vehicle when it comes to the drugs and the different pieces of equipment that we have to haul around. And also, the other thing about that is our detectives are constantly, it might be wet weather, they're walking around back there trying to put things in and out, and they could easily slip on the metal.
Okay. Can you tell me how much money is in the drug seizure fund?
I think right at this time, I believe, I don't have an accurate account, but I'm going to say probably $300,000 to $400,000.
And how long has it taken to collect that much?
Well, it varies. This amount probably has accrued to the level it is over the past 2 years. One of the things to remember is that we are also part of the DEA task force, and we are given dividends from them, and that is a valley-wide, if you will, and most of their money comes from the airport, seizures from the airport. So the 6 cities that are involved in this task force, we all get our share of, sometimes not for a couple of years, but we just got a share a few months ago.
So are there restrictions on what that can be spent on?
It is very restrictive. It can only be used for the furtherance of drug crimes.
Okay. Can it be used for personnel?
Well, it can be for as long as they're being included in some sort of a drug-related operation, but not as far as wages are concerned. It's not something that can be used for wages. It has more to do with equipment and such as this, and other sometimes overtime, things like that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your answers.
Thank you very much. So I have one question for John Hutton. I'm wondering if we should make the agenda item say, I move to forward the truck purchase in the total estimated cost amount of $39,193.69. Should we include that total amount in the motion to move forward?
Mary, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just move the amount up into the committee recommendation. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So do I hear a motion?
Chairperson, what's that
Sure.
amount again? I'm sorry.
It is, you would just simply say, how about if I make the motion, I'll just say, and you can just repeat.
Okay.
I move to forward the new SIU truck purchase authorization in the total estimated cost of $39,193.69 to the March 16th, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
And I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Sabadas, you okay?
Oh,
Okay.
you didn't hear me? I said aye.
Oh, then I didn't, but thank you. Okay, it's
Okay.
been moved and seconded and moved in totally in favor. Thank you so much. Appreciate that very much. Okay, thank you, Commander Neal.
Thank you.
So now we're moving forward to the 2020 program year consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, CAPR. Brittany Julius.
Good afternoon. I am assuming that you all can hear me just fine. So if I see otherwise, I'll stop. Good evening. Again, my name is Brittany Julius, and I am the CDBG Human Services Coordinator with the city. And tonight I am here to present on the 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, also known as the CAPR. And so, as you all may know, the CAPR is required for each year of the Consolidated Plan Program period, which currently covers program years 2020 to 2024. And we utilize this report to show the ways in which the city has utilized community development block grant funds for specific goals, which are to preserve affordable housing, establish and maintain suitable living environments, prevent and address homelessness, and expand economic opportunities. The 2020 CAPR is for the first program year, and it covers the periods from January 1, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. And so in this CAPR, we will highlight, and for the presentation, we will highlight some of the accomplishments for the program year. The city has expended 52% of its available CDBG resources during 2020, which again is the first program year of the consolidated plan. So that translates to $940,604 that were used in both CDBG and CDBG CV funds. And just to clarify, the CV funds were used solely for activities that not only showed a connection to coronavirus, but demonstrated the program's ability to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus. And so with these funds, agencies were able to assist 998 individuals, majority of which were very low to low income persons. Some of the key accomplishments highlighted in the 2020 CAPR, the Federal Way Inclusion Program provided assistance to 310 individuals with disabilities, and they received various services such as classes to help them live independently. Villa Capri, which was a project focusing on rehabilitation using those CDBG funding, it's an 86 unit affordable housing apartment complex. So again, using these CDBG funds, they were able to complete that rehabilitation project for 2020. The three various employment and education programs offered by Apprenticeship for Non-Traditional Employment for Women, also known as the new Multi-Service Center, MSC, and Orion provided services to 48 Federal Way residents, with 15 receiving job placements for the 2020 program year. And Pediatric Interim Care Center provided critical care for one infant who was drug exposed. And so, as we have heard throughout tonight, 2020 threw a lot of challenges that were very much unprecedented. And so, although homeowners postponed housing repair projects due to COVID-19 concerns, the city was able to complete 2 home repairs, and we anticipate 5 additional repairs being completed in 2021. Highline College's citywide business development program and the Start Zone program, which serves residents in the former Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Act in North Federal Way, were able to assist 50 individuals with technical assistance, and this was for both established businesses and startups. There were also some new services and services that were already already happening, but were able to expand, were as a result of some CV funding. And so these additional resources include Catholic Community Services assisting 404 people experiencing homelessness in the city of Federal Way because of their expanded day center hours. Reach Out, also CCS, they were able to expand some services and provide 24/7 staffing in non-congregate settings for 30 Federal Way residents. And we know the importance of non-congregate settings in the COVID world now. I'm sorry. My finger got ahead of itself and accidentally went to the next slide. There we go. And so lastly, 58 low and moderate income youth were able to be served via Boys and Girls Club of Federal Way. And so the timeline for the 2020 CAPER public comment period is still currently open. It started February the 17th and will go until March 16th. And that public comment period closes at 4 p.m. Public hearing was held at the Human Services Commission in February, and they voted to recommend approval. And so here tonight, consideration for the Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee. And after that, it will be the go-to consideration on approval for City Council next Tuesday. And we are planning to submit to HUD no later than March 31st. And that concludes the presentation for the CAPER.
Thank you very much, Ms. Julius. Council, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I raised my hand. I don't know if you can see
I
it.
can't see it. Yeah, Ms. Julius, can you take down the
Okay, let me.
presentation? Thank you.
Okay, I have three.
Or we have some more to do?
Oh no, I was gonna say I have three things. Oh, three screens, and there's like a lag time. So give me just a moment.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. So now I can see if somebody has a question. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councilmember Sevadawson.
Yeah, thank you so much. So is this, did you say it's for the 4 years, 2020 to 2024?
Correct. The CAPER.
The CAPER, okay. And then what is through December 2021?
So the program year, and I may have give me just a minute. And so the CAPER is required for each year, and that's the consolidated plan that covers that 2020 to 2024. So the CAPER is for the program year that I covered, 2020 CAPER, which we will do that for each year in the consolidated plan. I think I explained that correctly.
Yeah, got it. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay.
And the report is on, it looks like it's on page 12 of your agenda packet. It's a nice job. Any other questions? Thank you. Do I hear a motion to move this forward to the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion,
March
Chair Kochmar.
16th? Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion. I move to forward the proposed 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report to the March 16th, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Thank you very much. Thank you both very much. It's been moved and seconded by Greg Burriso, Councilmember Burriso, seconded by Councilmember Sevadawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving forward now to the next item on the agenda, item E. It's the interlocal agreement with Public Health of South King County for the South King County Mobile Medical Program. Again, Ms. Julius.
Thank you. And so per the city's interlocal agreement policy, contracts made between the city and municipalities require council approval. Accordingly, the Community Development Department Community Service Division asked if the city should enter into an interlocal agreement with Public Health of Seattle-King County for the South King County Mobile Medical Program. The City Council allocated $536,000 to the Human Services General Fund grants as part of the 2021-2022 budget. On November 17th, 2020, City Council approved the Human Services Commission 2021-2022 grant recommendations, which included $8,000 per year for 2 years for Public Health of Seattle-King County's South King County Mobile Medical Program. In accordance with the approved budget, this item is funded by general fund. Upon completion of the agreement, there will be no currently planned future costs to the city. So the grant funding provides dental services to people experiencing homelessness in the city of Federal Way. The program proposes to provide 27 dental visits per year to 26 unduplicated Federal Way residents with the goal of improving health.
Thank you very much, Ms. Julius. Council, any questions? Council President Honda.
Thank you. How would someone who's homeless go about getting an appointment to use these services?
Give me just a moment. And so this is a mobile medical program.
Right.
Give me.
Do they come down to a specific location on a certain day of the month?
Brittany, may I answer that?
Yes, you can. I'm sorry.
No. You, of course, you can find it, but since I do know the answer, I think it's just as easy to share it. The mobile medical van, which provides dental in our case, does come to the day center on a regular schedule. I don't know the specific day if you wanted to look that up, but they are referred through the day center. Other providers, our outreach teams from various agencies know about the service and know how to get connected to it. But reaching out directly to public health or CCS through the day center is probably the easiest way to access.
So does a medical mobile van still come down to Federal Way?
It does. I'm less familiar with that as they don't apply for funding, so I'm not as aware of their process, but they are here as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for the work you guys do on this.
Any other questions? I have one. So, Ms. Richford, for this money has already been allocated for the mobile van, correct? It's already within the grant funding that's already been approved by the council, right? The 16,000 or whatever for the mobile van. So all we're really doing is approving proposing the local agreement, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion?
Sure. I move to forward the proposed interlocal agreement to the March 16, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Sabadosin and seconded by Councilmember Baruso to move the proposed interlocal agreement forward to the March 16th consent agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Well, we're moving right along down to, we're going to item F for Sarah Bridgeford, which is the interlocal agreement for the purpose of pooling sales tax receipts with South King Housing and Homelessness Partners cities to administer funds under RCW 82.14.54. So, Ms. Bridgeford.
Thank you, Chair Kochmar. I have a presentation. I probably wouldn't have done one, but this has been an item that has come before council, I believe, 4 or 5 times at this point, or items at least related to House Bill 1406. So I'll take the liberty of using the PowerPoint since it's available, but we will keep this brief, and if you have any questions, then I'll be happy to answer them. So as you stated, this is the interlocal agreement for the purpose of pooling sales tax receipts with South King Housing and Homelessness Partners, or SKIP, cities to administer the funds under RCW 8214.540, also known as House Bill 1406. So at this point, again, this has come before you frequently. The SCIP board actually jokes that it is the perpetual agenda item, as it has taken us just over a year to get to an ILA. The RCW allows cities to take action to recapture a portion of the sales tax, which the City of Federal Way did in 2019. So that was in the fall of 2019. Further, the funds may be pooled with entities like SCIP, and that can allow jurisdictions to leverage their funds and accomplish more with that funding source. So the funds may be used to acquire, rehab, or construct affordable housing. It can be used for the operations and maintenance of affordable or supportive housing. And finally, for cities that have populations less than 100,000, it may be used for rental assistance. It has long been held by SCIP and jurisdictions that the best way to leverage the funds and maximize its impact is to support affordable housing through either, again, that acquisition, rehabilitation, or construction, because it increases the affordability period versus one-time rent assistance. The RCW, again, allows us to use these funds in a pooling, with pooling, and SCIP has, in its original ILA, the ability to establish a capital fund. City Council enacted Resolution 20-797 in October of 2020 to support the pooling of the funds collected pursuant to the RCW. And what you'll see here is that we're just looking for the interlocal. Some of the agreements or some of the details of how these funds would then be used are not yet in place. Those are going to be items that the SCIP Executive Board will develop at the time that the ILA is in place. So that will include funding priorities, eligibility, application and review processes, and any recommendation will come before City Council if it's using City of Federal Way funds. So we will give the funding to SCIP. They'll have a certain amount up to that $125,000 per year that we may collect through this tax. And those projects that are recommended by the SCIP Executive Board will come before City Council for consideration. The cities that have agreed to pooling, all cities with the exception of Covington have agreed to pooling at this time. I would note that Renton is not named in the ILA that you have before you. The reason for that is timing. They have not yet or have just enacted a resolution in support of pooling. So they will be added via a companion agreement at a later date. And Covington may also choose to join the pooling ILA at a later time as well. And with that, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Council, any questions? Council President Honda.
Whoever I am.
Yeah, whoever you are. Whatever works.
Sarah, thanks for being here tonight. So with the current issues going on with folks having a difficult time paying rent and the eviction process being stopped, but at some point, that'll be lifted, and we could have people that are in real serious trouble with trying to pay back rent. Is it still recommended by SCIP to not put money into rental assistance?
It is as the mechanism for supporting affordable housing. As you may recall, we have a fairly significant investment using the CDBG CV in rent assistance. And part of this additional stimulus will have a large investment in rent assistance as well. And I am trying to be quick, and it's opening very slowly. I was going to let you know the exact dollar amount between two programs that will be providing rent assistance with the city's CDBG funds. And unfortunately, it's not loading, but I believe that Multi-Service Center is receiving 418,000 and CCS will receive maybe approximately 200,000, give or take. King County has additional rent assistance that they are deploying now. And then again, with these funds through the new stimulus, there's significant housing stability funding as well.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
It is a good question. It is something that we have talked about on, where we can leverage those funds. The funds with House Bill 1406 also would require the development of a new program that we would have to run internally, and staffing is a consideration. And we could figure it out that, again, looking at the other funding that's available with CDBG, it seems a better use to use those funds for that purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Council? So, Ms. Richard, I do have one. If someone is watching the program and they want to know how to apply for rental assistance, number one, can they apply for back rent that's due? Some people may have a number of months that are back rent that are due and haven't, because of the eviction moratorium, they haven't been evicted. And secondly, of course, they don't want to be evicted. And then secondly, how do they go ahead and apply either retroactively or moving forward?
So most rent assistance is for past due rent. And that's just something to clarify, that most rent assistance programs are not going to pay future rent. And the Multi-Service Center, this funding is not up and running, nor is a CCS, but it will be soon. We can provide that at a future committee and council meeting. You can provide that in the committee update. One thing that I would recommend, because there are a variety of rental assistance sources, King County being one, 211 is a great resource for looking at rent assistance. It will provide a broader array of rent assistance programs than just those that the city is funding. But we will make sure that we get that information to council to share at a city council meeting. It will go up on the website as well. But 211 has current listings, and I just can't stress the importance of using that. If you have internet access, the website can be a quicker way of getting that information to on the 211 website.
Great, thank you. So, Council, do I hear a motion?
Chair Kirchmeier, I have a motion for you.
Thank you.
I move to forward the proposed agreement to the March 16th, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Baruso and seconded by Councilmember Severdawson to move the proposed agreement for the pooling of sales tax receipts with South King County, the South King Housing and Homeless Partners to administer the funds to the March 16, 2021 consent agenda for approval. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Oh, we're down to the last item on the agenda, item G. And it's again, Ms. Bridgeford, it's the updated program year 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. Ms. Bridgeford?
Thank you, Chair Kochmar. So this evening, I will be presenting the updated 2021 Community Development Block Grant CDBG Annual Action Plan. One thing I'll note is we call this an updated annual action plan rather than an amendment, which is the term that we typically would use. And the reason for that is the annual action plan is not submitted to HUD, which is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, until we receive our actual allocation. We still create the annual action plan in the fall. It comes before council, as it did in November of 2020, in order to be compliant with the regulations. But because it hasn't been submitted to HUD, it is not considered an amendment. We call it an updated plan, and it just looks a little bit different in terms than an amendment would. The 2021 Annual Action Plan, as presented to and approved by City Council in November, included a placeholder for funding that needed to be reallocated to other eligible projects. I will detail where those funds are coming from on the next slide, but the timing of the decisions precluded the city from reallocating those funds in the fall before it came before council. Additionally, I want to note that the city's actual 2021 allocation is $768,610. At the time of the Human Services Commission meeting in February 2021, this amount was not publicly available, so the documents that went before Commission were slightly different than those that are before you this evening and going to City Council next week. We did note this with the Commission and addressed the fact that we were able to share that allocation later in the week, just after their meeting. So the funding that has become available are from the following sources. As you're aware, $235,000 from the Section 108 debt service is available as the city has suspended the use of CDBG for the repayment of that loan. $146,417 is available through Housing Repair Program. In working with Jerry Lynn Clark, who manages that program, and because of the delays due to COVID, we determined that we were able to operate the program in 2021 with no impacts. The 5 projects that Ms. Julius had referenced earlier in the CAPER are 2020 projects that will continue into 2021 that we are fully able to offer the Housing Repair Program in 2021. An additional $22,193 is available due to that slight increase in our 2021 allocation. So then we're able to apply the difference between our anticipated allocation and our actual, less some pro rata adjustments that go to planning and admin and public services. And then finally, there is the potential that $37,000 from code compliance will be available as the city evaluates the program alignment with CDBG. If there is a change there, that would come to City Council in the city's budget amendment that would happen in the spring. And at that time, we would be able to do a minor amendment to the plan through the Human Services Commission and present that to HUD. The proposed use of the funds is for establishing a shelter for adults. Homelessness continues to be a priority for the City of Federal Way. This was a goal that had been added to the 2020 through 2024 CDBG Consolidated Plan, and it included support from the Human Services Commission, Mayor Farrell, and City Council. The permanent shelter for adults continues to represent a gap in the city. While Reach Out is technically in existence at this point, it is outside of the city. We do have 30 added beds at the Red Lion, but that is temporary, and COVID has just highlighted the importance of having a permanent location for shelter, as it's very difficult to adapt a shelter service in a rotating location and a location and services that did not go year-round. So city support of establishing a year-round shelter included the Homelessness Task Force, which made the recommendation in its report as one of the first recommendations to establish a year-round shelter. City Council approved that particular recommendation in addition to others at a special meeting in October of 2019, and Mayor Farrell does support the establishment of a permanent year-round shelter through these funds. A few details about the shelter project, and there are not many at this point. So first, it would be I would just note that the shelter would need to be identified, both a provider and location, as well as the capital stack of funding that would be necessary for an acquisition and any potential rehabilitation. The city will use a competitive process such as a letter of interest and/or application. We may do that in partnership with other funders such as King County, depending on what funding looks like. The Human Services Commission will review the applications or whatever process that is used and make a recommendation to City Council. Just again, noting the importance of the amount of funding that would be needed for a project such as this. And even at $440,000, which is significant for the city in terms of supporting social services capital projects, would be not enough for a complete project. So that means that we would have some work to do in making a project be feasible. And in the case where a project that is feasible is not identified or funding is not secured, a different recommendation would need to be made with those funds. A timeline for the updated annual action plan is on the slide. Our public comment period opened on February 12th and closes on March 16th. There was a public hearing at the Human Services Commission on February 22nd, and a second public hearing will be at City Council on the 16th. We do not have a date for submitting the plan to HUD. We're tied to the King County Consortium, and at this point, not all of our partners are ready to go. So we would not be able to submit until they are ready. I would anticipate that by the end of April, we should have the entire consortium ready to submit to HUD. And then HUD would have, I think, 45 days following the submittal to approve the plan or provide comments and request updates. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Bridgeford. Council, any questions? Statements?
I do have a question. That's
Go
okay.
ahead, Councilmember.
So with the submittal to HUD, the deadline for that is April then for the whole consortium?
Yes. So I should know this, but I believe it's 45 days after we receive the allocation, which puts us in mid to late April.
And so if someone is not ready, I mean, I know usually it happens where everybody's ready, but then what happens? Can everybody else who's ready submit, or does it have to be a full packet?
It has not come up.
Yeah.
I would believe that we would submit that if there were a jurisdiction that were not ready, that we would submit as a whole consortium, and they would apply for a waiver separately and need to go in. In our system, it would look like an amendment, and I think that would be the process that we would use.
Okay, I can't see it happening, but I didn't know what the plan would be for that.
It is a
Thank
good
you.
question and one that we should address just in case.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see we've been joined by Councilmember Leandra Kraft. Welcome. So, Council, are there any other questions? Council President Honda.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. So for the shelter, this would be for men and women, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
And
a dog.
oh, I didn't hear the dog, and my
Oh,
dog's
that's good.
sleeping, so we could have all the dogs start barking and saying hi to each other. Do we have any kind of a projected timeline as to when this could potentially start? That open or be in use?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that there are a number of factors that come into play. Again, looking at the additional funding that's required for a project to be feasible. There is some potential in response to COVID, and I can't say this for sure, but in looking at types of funding that have become available and that are proposed as part of the stimulus package, there is a significant investment in homelessness and housing stability. So there could be funding that's available through that stimulus, or it could be something that we are tied to other application processes, including King County and the state. Realistically, if depending on what funding becomes available, we could have something as soon as a year. We could have something that is 4 years out. The period of performance in CDBG funds is 6 years. If we hit 4 years and we didn't have a shelter project, I would recommend reallocating the funds. But I would anticipate that if we're going to have a feasible project, we'll know sooner than that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So if we're thinking of a shelter, are we thinking of something like Fusion that purchased the motel for, I think they're in rehab, a total it's about 6 million, maybe more. And then they have also ongoing operating costs. But that's only housing 13 families. Is that kind of what we're looking at, or what is it precisely that we might be looking for?
Yes, it would be something similar. So Fusion did receive a total of $6 million between King County and the state of Washington. They do have some of that funding remaining for operations for several years. This would be in collaboration with other funders. The city is not the primary funder of shelter, so it is looking at where there is funding for sustainability as well. That's part of the feasibility of a project. The scope of projects that are a 24/7 shelter for individuals, much like for Fusion's project for families, there's kind of that return on investment that you're looking for. For individual shelters, some providers say that it's around 50 to 60 people. That's about the time that the cost to operate it starts to make sense for the number of people that are being served. Reach Out had a capacity around 45. They enrolled more on occasion. They would have more people. So just giving you a scope of what that might be, I would anticipate something similar. That again, that would be dependent on a location.
So this is something that our Human Services Commission is going to be reviewing.
Yes, yeah. Any application, whether it's a letter of interest or a full RFP, would be reviewed by the commission. And then we'll continue to review feasibility as projects are identified.
So would we include within this whole idea some kind of a temporary shelter as well for those people who are homeless during a snowstorm, for example, but that aren't going to be in our area for long-term homeless? I'm just trying to think of what our needs are.
Yep, that would be on my list. And I would certainly share that with any provider that the city would prefer to have a location that could have some expanded capacity during severe weather shelter. That is not an uncommon practice. If space allows, most shelters will expand capacity during severe weather. Some shelters, like in Tacoma, they actually expand during all winter months. There are some in Seattle that do the same. It is space dependent and would be kind of determined based on the facility that's identified.
Okay. Thank you.
We would prefer that, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Bridgeford. Council, do I hear a motion for item G?
Sure.
Okay.
I move to forward the proposed updated program year 2021 CDBG annual action plan to the March 16, 2021 agenda for public hearing.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Sepidawson and seconded by Councilmember Baruso to move the proposed updated program year 2021 CDBG annual action plan to the March 16th consent agenda. To the March 16th agenda for public hearing. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Well, thank you. It looks like we're coming to the end of our agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Good job, Councilmember Baruso, on bringing in Chief Pennington on an update on the fire department. That was a good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. And so our next meeting will be April the 13th, 2021 at 5 p.m. And hopefully by then, John will have talked with Council President Honda will have talked to somebody about what might be happening with our lobbyists in the federal, especially with the third stimulus plan and how that's going to affect what we're asking for with our turf ideas.
Will do.
Okay. All right. Well, seeing nothing else, I think it's time to say adieu. And thank you all for being here. Thank you very much for being prepared. And thank you all. See, Gordy Goodsell stayed with us the entire time. Thank you. Okay, and Chief Pennington. All right. Well, thank you all so much. We'll see you at the council meeting on March 16th. Good
Thank you.
evening
Thank you.
and take care.
Thanks.
Take care.
Night.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Bye bye.